Hi, so this is a channel about drawing, and right now we are doing drawing for animation. Okay, so I don't know how long ago I started to be interested in animation, but of course at the beginning I understood nothing, and it was so complicated. It just wasn't for me because it was too hard. But recently, the last year, I think, I started to do exercises, trying to understand how to animate something. Because apparently, a lot of the things, you know, you use to animate, you apply to animate something, can be applied to everything. So, right now, I'm trying to take it more seriously. And I did this bouncing ball and I really like the result, but it didn't stick in my mind like something that I could repeat. So this analysis helped me a lot to make it stay. Okay, so first it's important to mention that the first bouncing part of the ball, I made it without applying the squash and stretch. And the second part, I applied these squash and stretch methods. Let's go through the frames step by step. First, this is the first frame. And first of all, let's see the timing of the first frame. The timing of the first frame is 0.04 parts of a second. That means, so let's say we have here 1 second and we divide it in 4 parts. Boom, in 4 parts. So we divide 1 second in 4 parts. So this is the first part, this is the second part, this is the third part, and this is the fourth part. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each part has to be 1/4 of a second. So here we divided this in 4. Imagine that we divide it in many parts. Yeah, so this is 1 second divided in 12 parts. Now, if you want to say Photoshop, how much fractions of a second has to last one frame? That means how smooth the action is going to be. Well, we have to divide this one gigantic portion of a pizza that is represented by this A1, in 12 parts. Boom, boom, boom. Divided, or maybe you use this symbol for division, divided in 12 parts. That is equal to 0.08. Basically, if you multiply this 0.08 by 12, the result should be 1. It makes sense, right? So we know that 12 frames per second equals to 0.08 each frame. If you want to know how much lasts one frame if there are 24 frames in 1 second, well, we would have to divide this circle in 24 parts. Actually, so if here we have 12 frames, we will have to divide each one in half. Of course, this is really bad. But you get the point, right? I hope. We divide 1 second in 24 parts. And we make the division 1 second divided by 24. Just the half of the other result is 0.04. Most of my frames last 0.04 because it means this is 24th part of a second. That means that the action is going to be smoother than in the top part. Then in these frames that correspond to the top part of the path of the ball, these have a slower frame rate. It means that a frame only lasts a 12th part of a second. It's like putting 2 repeated frames, right? If we copied and pasted this frame one more time, but instead we just change the frame rate of this frame to make it slower, to make it last longer, and that gives nice effect, similar of a ball bouncing. First frame, the ball is on the floor. The second frame, the ball is a little higher. Cool, a lot higher actually. There's quite a space between the first and the second ball. And in the third frame, the space is even bigger. The space is even bigger Then between the first and the second, in the fourth frame, it starts to slow down. It starts to advance, but less. In the fifth frame, the same. In the sixth frame, same. Advances, but just a little. In comparison, in the second, in the third, in the fourth frame, it advances quite a lot. In the fifth, sixth, seventh, it advances really little. This is why we get this effect that makes it seem like it's a real ball, because apparently balls, when they are in the top part of their bouncing path, they slow down. So we have the eighth frame, where the ball starts to go down. The ninth, same, it goes down just a little. And the 10th, same, it goes down just a little. And in the 11th one, it goes down by a lot. And I just forgot to say that in the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th frame, the timing is different. The timing is a 12 frame per second rate. That means it's twice as much as the other frame rate. So we're here in 9th frame, and we go to the 10th. It still goes down a little bit, but now we change the frame rate and we have a 24 frame per second frame rate. Like again, that means that we go faster now. And here, look, between the 10th and the 11th frame, we go down by a lot of space. And same between the 11th and the 12th. And now, let's jump into the second part, where I apply the squash and stretch. Okay, so we have, first of all, a stretched ball. We start like this with a stretched ball. We stretch it horizontally in the 13th frame. In the 14th frame, we make it go back to its original shape little by little. So we start in the 14th frame. In the 15th frame, it has already its original shape. In the 16th, it starts to jump, and while doing it, it is stretched directly. And it jumps just a little bit. In the 17th, it jumps by a lot. I haven't kept the volume. I made the volume bigger. This was not intentional, but I think the final result looks pretty good to me. In principle, you have to keep the volume the same, but I didn't here, and I still like how it looks. Good. Next frame, 18th. It jumps up by a lot, and it has started to de-stretch. Next, frame 19th. It goes up by a little more, and yeah, it's still in the process of de-stretching by just a little. In the 20th frame, the next frame, it has taken its original shape of a round ball, and it has gotten up by just a little bit. And if you paid attention, we entered the 12 frame per second rate. That means this frame lasts twice as much as the previous one, the 19th frame, and it also means, if we give a synonym of what I just said, we can say that this lasts 0.08 parts of a second, which is twice as much as the previous frame, which lasts 0.04 parts of a second. Okay, so here, this part in particular is going to be less smooth than the other parts. But this is good here because we are going to give the illusion that the ball is going slower, because when a ball is bouncing, when it reaches the top part of the bouncing path, it goes slower. So in the 20th frame, it has gotten up a little bit and we're in a slower frame rate. The next frame is the 21st and it goes up a little bit, goes up a little bit more, and it keeps its shape. In the 22nd frame, it goes up again a little bit more and it keeps its shape. Next, it goes down just a little bit, keeping its shape in principle. I know it's not the same shape, but in principle, the idea was that it kept its round shape of a ball. And we are still in the 12 frame per second rate. Good. In the next frame, we change the frame rating to 24 frames per second. And so that this means the frames are going to go faster, one after the other. The action is going to be smoother and the ball is going down by a little bit. But the thing here is that the ball is starting to stretch again. So this was like mind-blowing for me because it makes the final animation look great. Is that the process from original shape and stretching is a process, and we have to do it gradually if you want the thing to be appealing. At least this is what I'm learning right now. So here it goes down and it starts to stretch again. And the 25th frame, it goes down by more space than the previous frames, and it stretches more as well. For the 26th frame, it stretches even more, and it goes down by a little bit. In the 27th, it starts to de-stretch or go back to its original shape again while going down. In 28th frame, it goes down and it de-stretches a little bit more, well, quite a lot more, but it doesn't touch the ground, not yet. It's in the next frame, the 29th, that it touches the ground and it squashes its bottom part. Well, in the next frame, the 30th frame, it squashes even more, keeping this kind of triangular rough shape. In the 31st, it has stretched a lot. And in the next frame, I left it blank just to see what happens, and actually it's barely noticeable. But then we go back to the beginning of the loop where I haven't applied the squash and stretch. The squash and stretch phase looks more surprising since the beginning, since the first part was really stiff, wasn't applying the squash and stretch. So I really like the effect that it gives. I think it's really good. I'm really happy that I'm learning this. So look, and yeah, I really like this surprising effect that of the ball, being squashed and stretched all of a sudden when at the beginning it wasn't. It seems really smooth somehow, and I like it, even though the transition is really abrupt between here, the 12th frame, and here, the 13th frame. The squash is not gradual, it's abrupt, whereas towards the end in the second base where I apply the squash and stretch, the change between the ball and the stretch is a process, and it's done in like 4 frames. Look, yeah, between the original shape of the ball and the stretch, it's done in 4 frames or in 3 frames. It crashes the floor, it stretches more, so it's gradual. But here the transition between the first phase and the second phase is abrupt, not like here. So this contrast makes the whole look more interesting, I think. More interesting, more pleasant to watch. This analysis I'm doing right now is helping me a lot because this way I'm understanding better what I did. I really needed this, and I hope this was useful for you too. Okay, thank you and bye. So this analysis helped me a lot, and I think now I understand better. And one of the 2 things that I remember clearly is that when you, for example, stretch one volume, for example, my face, let's say I'm surprised and so in animation I'm going to stretch my face. Thing is that I have to keep the volume. The volume has to be the same. That means that when I stretch it, I have to reduce this part, the horizontal broadness, or has to be reduced because I'm stretching these parts. So the volume can be the same. And if you stretch like this, like for example, something hits my head for some reason, my head gets squashed, like boom, like in animation I will stretch it like this, but if I stretch it like this to keep the volume, I have to reduce this. When something in animation goes really fast, it's a good thing to stretch that thing or make it bigger. Stretch it. Why? Because that way, since it goes so fast, our eye sees it better. In comparison, if it was on the contrary small and not stretched, since it's going so fast, our eye would notice it less. So this is why when something is going super fast, like a hand like grabbing something, or a car doing its car thing or something that goes fast, well, it's a good thing to stretch it so the eye can notice it better, since it's going too fast, since the frame is going to last so little. The second thing is that when you stretch something, it has to go back to its original shape. it has to de-stretch. So that means that while it's moving, the thing is not going to be only stretched and directly go back to its original shape, but it's going to go through a phase of de-stretching while it's moving. While it's moving. I don't know why this was surprising to me, and seeing the result was like, wow, while it's moving, it's stretching, but also de-stretching, you know. So it has to de-stretch little by little and stretch little by little. Okay, bye.